Good afternoon, everyone. Well, it is the 26th of June, and actually, this week, as I am visiting you and doing this episode on Ecclesiastes 4, verses 9 and 10, it is literally working right into so many different things in my life. I will admit to being a little bit emotional about this one because I see these verses in the reality of my own life in actually several different times. But right now, this time in my life, it is a big deal. And it's also a big time, important time for people who I love very much, my children and their families uh, at this time. One of the greatest misconceptions that we can have in life is believing that strength means going it alone. And definitely not true. Many of us were taught to be independent, and there is a good reason for that in some ways, to figure it out ourselves, to solve our own problems, to carry our own burdens. But Scripture teaches us something profoundly different. It teaches us that we were never designed to walk this journey by ourselves. And um, many of us in our relationships that we find in our lives see this play out in so many different ways. And in particular, I think about those relationships where uh, you have a partner, a wife or boyfriend, girlfriend, and Ecclesiastes reminds us that two are better than one. Not because one person is weak, but because God created us to need one another. As I reflect on my life, I realize that almost every meaningful accomplishment, every important lesson, and every difficult season involved other people. It involved my parents. It certainly involved teachers I've had, coaches I've had, my closest friends for sure, my mentors, who some of those folks are teachers and coaches in my life, my spouses, and yes, I have had uh, two spouses and uh, a longtime girlfriend. And then there are children in your life and students, your faith community. Um, no one truly succeeds alone, and perhaps more importantly, no one should have to suffer alone. Ecclesiastes paints a simple but powerful picture. One person falls, another reaches down and helps them up. That image is much more than physical. Sometimes we fall emotionally, sometimes spiritually, sometimes financially, sometimes professionally. Sometimes we simply become discouraged, and I'll put it out there. I have experienced each and every one of those in my life, and I suspect that those of you that are watching this and listening to this have had exactly the same thing. And during these moments, having someone beside us changes everything. The people who walk beside us often become one of God's greatest gifts. They provide encouragement, and when we feel defeated, they raise us up. Perspective, they give us perspective when we become confused, strength when we become exhausted, hope when we begin to lose our way. And this truth has been evident again throughout my own journey. As a teacher, coach, mentor, father, and friend, I have witnessed countless examples of people helping one another through difficult seasons. And I see it so often in our own community, in my church, uh, among my friends, and from my friends. No one really understands how important those blessings are, of how people who have walked beside me and been there when I needed them is so important. No one reaches their purpose entirely alone. Purpose is often discovered and strengthened through relationships. One of the greatest challenges in today's world is that many people are surrounded by others, yet still feel isolated and alone. We have more ways to communicate than ever before. We look at social media, we look at so many different things, and that supposedly is helping us maintain our contacts, and it does in some ways. Person to person, face to face, hand in hand, someone that you can feel who's standing right there beside you and behind you, that's a pretty big deal. We have unfortunately seen loneliness remain one of the greatest struggles many people face. Isolation quietly weakens each of us. It convinces us that no one understands. It tells us to keep our struggles hidden. It whispers that, asking for help is weakness. But Ecclesiastes teaches the opposite. Strength is found in community. Wisdom is found in relationship. Healing is often found through connection. And sometimes the strongest things we can do is simply allow someone to walk beside us. Now, many of you who are uh, in my family and are aware of what is happening this week in my family, and um, I will share just a few of these things and with you. My daughter and her husband Tony got married just a few years ago, and they were absolutely meant for each other in so many ways. The fact that they like the adventure of walking in the woods, carrying bear spray, going where, as I've related to them this week again, that going to live where Sasquatch lives. Um, that's who they are, and they're not afraid of that. That adventurous spirit is what drives them. Tony is an avid hunter, likes to play golf. In fact, the fact that when I first met him, I played golf with him, and actually after that first round of golf, I knew he was the one. And I won't get into how I figured that out by the way he played, but that was something I actually messaged my daughter about almost as soon as we were done. This week is meaningful one for me personally, and uh, Molly, my daughter, and my son-in-law Tony are beginning a new chapter of their lives. They're moving to Colorado. I'm incredibly happy for them. And if I am honest, I am also a little sad because the person I felt who walked beside me and helped me through some challenging times, particularly as I got out of education, was my daughter. And uh, when I would go and pick her up years and years ago and bring her back to where I was working, and we'd have these long, long drives, and we would talk and visit. Um, that was very powerful, and it cemented a relationship. Now, it is as Scripture is teaching us that the people who walk beside us matter deeply. Their presence shapes our lives, and when seasons change, we feel both gratitude and loss because those relationships have been such a gift. It's not that those relationships still don't exist, but I'm not going to see Molly and Tony at a wrestling match or a football game anymore. And Jace is gone too. He's moved on to in his life after graduating. But things are changing in my life, obviously, and the reflection that I have and that I do prior to doing every one of these episodes based on the particular verses that I had picked. And I actually had this outline started a long time ago. And uh, it's funny how when I follow my outline and my process that I want to do, I have literally gone and lived it this week for sure. You know, I've had people who've been there for me through the thick and thin. My parents, my teachers, my coaches, my friends, my mentors, all those folks that I mentioned before. But perhaps the greatest question this scripture asks us is not simply who has helped me, but rather for who am I becoming that person? Because all of us have the opportunity to help someone else stand and feel safe and be cared about. Today, I want to encourage you to think about the people walking beside you, who has encouraged you, who has strengthened your faith, who has helped you and rise after you have fallen, and then ask yourself, who around me needs someone to walk beside them today? Because two truly are better than one. And to have a community of people around you, knowing that they're supporting you, is so very important. And perhaps one of the greatest purposes we have in life is helping someone else continue their journey. Because on that journey, they are going to influence a whole nother person. I appreciate you becoming part of the Becomers movement if you've been watching these episodes. I encourage you to comment on them and share them. I would appreciate that, certainly, because I want that word to spread. I want you to, because you are part of this movement, because you are listening and watching right now, keep growing, keep believing, keep encouraging, and keep becoming who you were created to be. And as I say, virtually every single video I have done, and there are over 100 of them on this channel right now, today you're going to encounter somebody who needs some help. And you may not know them, and you may never be repaid for what you do for them. But in doing one thing, raising them up, helping them out, and making their day better, perhaps their life better by what you did for them. You've done exactly the same for yourself. You've made your day better, your life better, and you've actually made this world a whole lot better place because you cared about someone else and you were willing to take action on it. Big lesson in Ecclesiastes. I think you hit it. Have a great day.